Classic lemon tart. First we're going to start by making the pastry. Take 250 grams of unsalted butter and 175 grams of castor sugar. We're going to put that in the mixer and blend on high speed for about 2 minutes. Now we're going to add half a teaspoon of salt, add the seeds from a vanilla pod, cut it down the centre and then scrape the seeds out. Pop that into our mixing bowl. Now we're going to grate the zest of 2 lemons on a fine grater. Put that into the mixing bowl too. Next, 500 grams of plain flour. I'm going to put the mixer back on at high speed for a couple of minutes until it's all mixed together. Once all of the flour and butter have been mixed together, we're going to add our eggs. So that's 1 egg and 1 yolk. Mix that for further 2 minutes until it all starts coming together. This recipe is enough for 2 tarts, so we're going to chop the pastry in half and separate that. Reserve 1 ball for later on, wrap that up in some cling film and that'll freeze nicely for up to 3 months. Now we're going to get ready to roll out our pastry. I find using cling film gives me the best results. I'm going to lay 1 layer on the bottom. Sprinkling of flour to stop the pastry from sticking to the cling film. And on with our pastry. Another light dusting of flour. Finally, another piece of cling film over the top. That's going to help us roll it nice and thinly, and it will help the pastry keep together and prevent it from cracking and falling apart. So with a rolling pin, we're just going to roll it to about the thickness of a 2p coin. The finer the pastry, the more delicate the tart, but also the higher the risk of it splitting. Now it's nice and thin. We're going to take the top layer of cling film off, and using the tart as a guide, trim off the excess pastry. I'm going to keep that for later to plug any holes if necessary. So we've left about 2 inches on either side of the tart case, so we've got enough to fill the tart case and some overhang. To stop the pastry from sticking to our tart case, we're going to butter it. Throw some flour on top of it, tap that excess flour out, and we've got a nice thin film of flour on the tart case, and that will stop the pastry from sticking to it. On a nice flat baking sheet, we're going to pop on our tart case and then flip over the pastry so that it's the raw side down onto the bottom of the tart case. And we're just going to push the pastry into all of the corners. That takes a wee bit of time, making sure that the corners are absolutely full of the pastry. And top with another 2 sheets of cling film. This is going to hold our baking beans. You can use greaseproof paper if necessary, if you fancy it, but I prefer cling film. And any pulse will do, haricot blanc or lentils, just anything to stop the pastry from rising up in the oven. I'm going to wrap those beans up, pop the pastry in the oven at for 180 degrees for 10 minutes. Meanwhile, we're going to get on with our filling. First we start with 300 millilitres of double cream. We're going to grate in the zest from 2 of our lemons. We're going to pop that on the stove and bring that to the boil. Once it's up to the boil, we're going to leave that to infuse for a couple of minutes. That will take all the lovely flavour out of the zest. Our 10 minutes are up for our pastry, so we're going to take out the baking beans and you see the pastry's set, but it's not brown, so we want to pop that back in for another 10 minutes, and that will cook the pastry all the way through to ensure that we've got a lovely crisp base to our tart. While that's cooking, we're going to squeeze the juice from our lemons, that's 4 lemons, add 350 grams of caster sugar, and then crack 9 medium eggs into the bowl. Make sure you pick out any stray bits of shell. We're going to add our cream. I'm going to sieve the zest out of the cream. And push that zest through the sieve with a ladle or spatula to extract as much flavour as possible. Whisk the egg, sugar and lemon mixture until it's nice and smooth, and then we're going to pour the mixture into the tart case while it's still in the oven. This is going to help us prevent any spillage. So pull out your tray and pour in the mixture. We're going to reduce the temperature of the oven to 120 degrees and cook that for 35 minutes. I'm going to check it after 30 and we're going to do the wobble test. And the wobble test is just to see whether the tart's cooked. And if you see, there's just a slight wobble in the centre of the tart, and that's ready. Leave it to cool for 10 to 15 minutes. Trim the excess pastry from the side so you can then take the tart case off and then portion it up. You can get 8 to 10 portions from this 12-inch tart, and I served mine today with a little raspberry compote and some whipped cream. So there you go, classic lemon tart. Very simple to do and very tasty.